Welcome back, everybody. Welcome to Not Funny Guys presents Red Dwarf Rewatch. We are finally at Series 3, and everything has kind of changed. As I mentioned in the last episode, Norman Lovett has been replaced as Holly, so we will have a new Holly, which we did technically see in Parallel Universe with Hattie Hayridge. This will go on for a little bit of time, but let's talk about this. So this is episode 1 of Series 3. For us, it's episode 13, but this is titled Backwards. Directed by Ed Bye, written by Rob Brandt and Doug Naylor, and this one was released on 11th of November 1989, which makes it exactly a year, so there's been some time lapse in the real world here. But, summary. With Crichton now a regular member of the crew, Rimmer takes him on a flying lesson in the transport vehicle Starbug. First time we've seen it, by the way. I love Starbug. But during the lesson, both of them find themselves encountering a time hole which drops them off on Earth in 1993. However, they soon discover that everything is backwards and the flow of time is going in reverse. With little choice, the pair is forced to find work until the cat and Lister can find them. Now, it is worth noting here, we have, like I said, jumped ahead in the real world by a year, finally get Starbug, and we get this hilarious opening crawl, much like Star Wars. But it's on a speed run, so I thought it'd be worth our time, thanks again to the Red Dwarf fandom, to look at what it's actually saying so that we can better appreciate it. So, this is what the scroll actually said. Red Dwarf 3, the saga continues. The story so far, 3 million years in the future, Dave Lister, the last human being left alive, discovers he is pregnant after a liaison with a female self in a parallel universe. His pregnancy concludes with the successful delivery of twin boys, Jim and Bexley. However, because the twins were conceived in another universe with different physical laws, they suffer highly accelerated growth rates and are both 18 years old within 3 days of being born. In order to save their lives, Lister returns them to the universe from which their origin, where they are reunited with their father, a mother, a woman, and are able to lead comparatively normal lives. Well, as normal as you can have been born in a parallel universe, and your father is a woman, and your mother is a man, and you're 18 years and 3 days after your birth. Go figure. Shortly afterwards, Crichton, the service mechanoid, who left the ship after being rescued from his own crash vessel, the Nova 5, is found in pieces after his space bike crash lands into an asteroid. So I guess he did leave the ship. Lister rebuilds the Noid, but is unable to recapture the former personality. Meanwhile, Holly, the increasingly erratic Red Dwarf computer, performs a head sex change operation on himself. He bases his new face on Hilly, the female computer from whom he had fallen madly in love. And now the saga continues. Red Dwarf 3, the same generation, nearly. Whew! All right, well. Isn't that lovely? So it's meant to catch us up on what happened. So crazy. I guess it's like a soft reboot. But we now have an opening scene with Kat and Lister in their basically new quarters, talking about the Flintstones. You know, the children's cartoon. And they find themselves, started by Lister, talking about Wilma Flintstone and whether or not they would go for her. And wondering if this is, they're crazy. And then they talk about Betty Rubble and they would be with her, but, they would be thinking about Wilma. And they all are doing this because they're worried about going nuts. And the fact that they're having this conversation is kind of proof positive of this fact. But meanwhile, Crichton is getting himself into kind of a panic of anxiety because he's about to take his flight test with Rimmer as his instructor, and he gets very paranoid and anxious, which is a common thing. Now that we've got Crichton with us as a regular, he is a fantastic addition to the crew. It is worth noting that the original actor, David Ross, has now been replaced with Robert Llewellyn, who will be our Crichton from here on out. So, they get on board. He's very anxious. He ends up accidentally activating the wipers, ejects Rimmer at one point, and finally manages to leave the cargo bay, hitting the doors on the way out, and then making some excuses about how he's used to the controls on Starbug 2, which are the same controls. Holly takes over the autopilot while he and Rimmer basically do stop-start equations and space signs and all that thing, and then Crichton sees a time hole. They get sucked in while doing astronomical charts, and the face that Rimmer gives when he realizes that it's not the blue dwarf he's pointing to, but the time hole outside, is priceless. They crash land on a planet that looks like Earth in the water of a lake. They go ashore, and they actually believe they have found Earth. They try to determine the time period, but Holly, as her usual self, is quite incompetent, thinks it's past lunchtime, and they're like, where are we? What time? What year? And they find a sign that says Nod Knoll. Crichton figures out that everything is backwards. This is London. They see a truck's about to hit a box, but instead they get in, and everything goes backwards. Rimmer is still quite confused by what's happening. Holly believes that they've gone into the Big Bang, has now reversed itself into the Big Crunch, and everything's moving backwards, including time. And so now they're on some Earth where time is moving backwards. At some point, oh my gosh, it's so gross. The way that food is consumed in this world, you actually uneat it. It's quite disgusting. And it's a repeat feature of the episode. They go to a cafe where they're trying to figure things out. Crichton shows up wearing a Ronald Reagan mask, trying to blend in. Rimmer tells him, don't worry about it. Just tell everybody you got into a car accident. Basically. Crichton manages to translate the paper. This is when they realize it's in 1993. Then they're in a world where people come back to life. Some people were brought back to life at a bank robbery that was returning money. Realize now that they're stuck. They have to wait until Lister and Kat find them. So they decide they have to get jobs. They search the job ads, and they basically settle on a theatrical novelty troupe, which is everything they do, because they do things in reverse to these people. Meanwhile, Lister and the cat have apparently been spending 3 weeks looking for them, and Kat has apparently reached the point of, well, it's okay, they're lost, fine, let's move on with life. And then they find the time hole as well, go in and end up in the same place as Rimmer and Crichton. They manage to land the Starbug 2. Gabe engages the cloak, which is kind of funny when they all step out and the ship is cloaked. Lister all of a sudden finds that he's injured. He's got like a broken rib and like he's really sore, and he's got a black eye. He doesn't know why. When he goes into the water to find the Starbug 1, he comes out of the lake and is immediately dried off. Again, everything's working in reverse, but they haven't figured this out yet. They find posters for Rimmer and Crichton's act. Lister can't read it. He eventually settles on the fact that maybe this is Bulgaria, and that Noddle is somewhere in Bulgaria. And they believe, to the absolute hilarious, that they trot off, they're the smart party. They end up stealing a bicycle, but they find out it goes backwards. They get tired of that and eventually end up hitching a ride in a truck to the act. They use the poster to help them figure it out. Where they then find out Rimmer and Crichton are performing a Reverse Brothers act. The Cat Listers still think they're in Bulgaria, though. It's ordering beer that they finally notice everything going backwards, and Lister finally pieces it together. Gosh, it's not like it was so obvious. After the show, where they do everything normal and can't figure out why it's funny, but then it's because it's the reverse world. After the show, they go backstage. Rimmer and Crichton are basically talking about how they want to stay. Talking about how great war is here. Everything, people come alive. In a couple decades, Hitler will retreat across Europe, liberating Poland and France, and eventually sawed off to being a bad artist somewhere. Because everything's in reverse. You actually start off dead. And then not Rimmer, but Lister is very much like, no, I'm 25. In a few years, I'll be back in puberty. Then the manager walks in and tells them they're fired. Apparently, they started a fight that hasn't happened yet. They then are arguing in the main room when the fight then happens in reverse. Lister gets unhurt by the punchers. He even gets thrown through a window, which apparently untwerks his back. And then when they finally decide to leave, they basically did a tidy up in the bar. Kat decides to take money from the tip jar and leave, but that's appropriate here. They hitch back to the ship, And finally, the most embarrassing part, the cat decides to go take a number 2 in the bushes. And then while they're saying this out loud to each other, Rimmer and Lister realize, oh no. In that face he makes. Oh God. Okay. Fantastic way. We're off to a romping start here. One of the things I love about this series is I don't think there's a bad episode, or very few bad episodes in the whole series. But next time we'll be looking at Marooned. But in the meantime, please like, subscribe, comment, share with your friends, particularly if you're into Red Dwarf, British comedy, or anything like that. You just want to hear me ramble about TV shows. All valid reasons. If you want to write and tell me things you'd like to see me do, things that I could do to improve the show, also write to me. You can do that at notfunnyguys.offthereal@gmail.com. You can find it here at the bottom, scrolling, but you can also find it in the description, along with our other social medias. I would like to also encourage you, if you want to check out our podcasts. We have movies over on Off the Reels, Not Funny Guys present Off the Reels. We're currently in the process of letting Casey try to make the internet mad at him by insulting all the Star Wars fans as we cover all the Star Wars movies. Just the movies. We're about to wrap up the prequels. So we have those. If you are interested in wrestling, horror movies, Casey and Eric have their Wrestling with the Horror Doll. They're prepping up for their Fright Night trip. They're going to be taking down to Orlando. And there is a special coming up soon where we will be releasing our watching of the Terrifier movies. Well, Casey enjoys the Hot Wings or the Hot Takes Challenge, whatever it is. You know the show, Hot Ones. That's it. It got to me there. Hot Ones special. He's going to be doing that while we watch those films. I look forward to watching him suffer. And you should too. Also, if you're into more academic teaching stuff, we do have another podcast, Thinking About Thinking, with Dr. Kristen, our Not Funny gal, and I, talking about stuff, so you can go check that out as well. We have a flavor for everybody. But please, again, like, subscribe, follow, share, check out our other stuff. A lot of it's down in the description below. And I will see you next time. And until then, keep it not funny.